we want to talk about something today. In fact, we've got a bunch of things to talk about. Number one on the list is N.A.T.O in Wales.
Yeah, South Wales.
Mm.
I had dealings with South Wales Police, you know.
Oh, South Wales Police. Yeah, I want to talk about them in a bit. Right, there's a meeting next week in Cardiff, and guess what? It's going to cost £50 million to stage it. There's a ring of steel all the way around Cardiff, including the castle. 50
million?
Yeah, Downing Street's going to fund it, allegedly.
So you mean we're going to pay for it?
Correct.
That's got it. This N.A.T.O, what did they do?
Well, Cameron tweeted this morning, and he says, because somebody asked, you know, who are N.A.T.O and what do they do? And he said on Twitter that N.A.T.O is a military alliance who keeps more than 5 billion people safe.
Right. So you've got this corporation called N.A.T.O.
Yeah.
That keeps 5 billion people safe.
Uh-huh.
And yet they need to erect 10-foot high steel fences to keep them safe.
Yeah, they can't even keep themselves safe.
So how are they keeping us safe exactly?
By taxing us.
Oh, well, that makes sense, so that's fine.
Yeah. And as you know, N.A.T.O had operations in Ukraine a couple of months ago.
Yes, in fact, I think they were in charge of that AWACS plane that was flying near the MH17 debacle.
So when they all meet next week, and these are all world leaders, right, who we know are probably responsible for all the humanitarian crimes in the world.
Death and destruction.
So we'd like to ask the South Wales Police if they can actually, you know, arrest all these people, but they let people have their houses taken away, and they just stand there while they watch people get beaten up. Well,
interestingly, they
have their camera stolen.
They were looking into the camera stealing and the criminal damage and the stealing of the memory card, but apparently there's no evidence to suggest that it ever happened.
Didn't they see the videos?
Clearly not.
That's
but mind you,
ridiculous.
they did have the back to us, so...
Well, that lunatic that called you up, Murph or whatever his name was, changed his name every week, he was actually there and witnessed it all and didn't do anything about it, and now he's leading the investigation. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
It was until they decided they're going to kill that, so they've killed that now, and now they can concentrate on the bigger things like looking after N.A.T.O, because N.A.T.O can't seem to defend themselves.
No, they certainly can't. It's a massive, massive steel ring. And these are all supposed to be our public servants. He came out in Parliament last week, a few days ago, that somebody said we should answer to our bosses, who are the public. And what does the public mean?
I think you've got that written down, haven't you?
I looked up the word public last night. Yeah?
Word of the day.
Public. A company or corporation of private concern. Look it up yourself.
So when the council say we're doing this for the public, they actually mean a private corporation?
Yeah.
Okay, just so we've clarified that situation.
So all the public's registered, you see, at birth, the Regis King.
Yes.
So there you go, ring of steel in Wales to protect our servants.
Who from?
Exactly.
I think it's from us, you know.
They said that they did actually say something this morning about who they are actually protecting from. Extremists.
Yeah.
But don't they fund the extremism?
Yeah. But they don't mean them extremists. They mean us extremists. Those that are aware of what's going on and how corrupt everything is. So they could put these big fences so nobody can get near and demonstrate, saying, "But we know that you're all corrupt. We know that you cause all the wars. We know that whenever you go anywhere, you cause a humanitarian disaster and then claim to be there to help it out. But all you ever do is make it worse." So I don't think we actually need the UN at all in any of its guises.
Well, they wouldn't listen to Ricky Simpson, would they?
No.
Ridiculous. Do you know something else I saw online this morning, and it was on RT's YouTube channel, and there was a report, and there was a gentleman who was an independent investigator in Iraq, and he went to speak to another chap in Iraq whose son apparently was fighting for this Islamic State set of lunatics who, as we know, were
IS now. It's called
IS,
which of course stands for Intelligent Services.
And yeah, he says my son was in prison in Holland, and his friend was in prison in the USA. And basically they've been brainwashed and drugged up to the eyeballs that much that they don't know what they're doing, because this is not Islamic. The IS, the Islamic State, they're no state and they're not Islamic at all.
Well, it's a total joke, because if you know anything about Islam, there's nowhere in Islam it says go and attack or blow anyone up. Nowhere.
It doesn't. It certainly doesn't say behead people.
No.
I mean, that's a sick joke. But of course, if you're drugged up to the eyeballs and you've been brainwashed by waterboarding and whoever's kept you captive, who's the biggest terrorist on the planet? The main torturer.
Well, anyone that's even got a slight bit of awareness about them knows that the biggest terrorists on the planet are the governments of the planet.
Which is NATO.
They're all in it together, of course.
They're all in NATO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think Libya wasn't in it with them, so they invaded there and killed Gaddafi, who was apparently quite a decent bloke, and looked after his population. Yeah. Well, that was it when it was coming out of the dollar and going to create the African dinar backed by gold. And of course, that would have destroyed the US overnight. The US corrupt government, of course, I'm talking about there.
So anyway, getting back to this man in Iraq and his son and his friend, he says he doesn't work for Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State. He says, as far as I know, he works for the CIA. It's a war on Islam. A war of terror, not a war on terror, a war of terror. And that's all headed by NATO.
Now, come on, people.
If you like.
Others will say things like, but aren't they terrorists?
Who?
The Islamic State. That's what they'll say. They're terrorists.
Well, you know what Cameron said a year or so ago, and he says we need to help the opposition in Syria, and the opposition in Syria were IS. Yeah, but Cameron and Obama refers to them as ISIL, and I've mentioned this before. You can actually buy an annual report on ISIL. Well, you can't buy it. You can download it. Maybe you'll have a look for it.
It's head office in London.
Yeah.
Strange, isn't it? And they can't find them. Hey! Their office is in London. If you just pop over and see them, I'm sure they'll accommodate you.
And by the way, if NATO wants to get hold of Al-Qaeda, ask the BBC.
Yes.
Because they've got a direct line and they interview them quite often. You thieves and lunatics. NATO? Ring of steel in Wales? You're having a laugh, aren't you? Keep yourself safe, please. That's it for now. We've got a load to talk about today, so we may change a little.